Hello, anyone who's watching. It looks like there's one person on here. What's up, Miles? You are the sole viewer presently. Got a few minutes before the actual stream is supposed to start, but I'm here. You can hear me? Yes? No? Awesome. Oh, what is good? I don't know. I'm alive. We'll put it that way. That's what's good. I am here and somehow managed to figure out how to do the stream today. It was not looking good for me yesterday to be able to get to it, but I finagled some things. So we're doing it. And yeah. I'm going to talk about the video that went up this past week and get into that a little while. Hello, Anthony. Welcome. Oh, yeah. Talk about video, all that mess. We're going to talk about some guitar pedal companies. Probably keep it around 35 to 45 minutes today. Just do the appearance and hang out with you fellas. I posted in Discord. I finally added Discord to my laptop because it doesn't work on my phone anymore. So I'm able to post there a little more frequently. We got 1 minute, then I'll start getting into the topics. I ate McDonald's breakfast today for the first time in a long while. Wasn't that great. Just put it out there. Not that that's a big shocker. Used to be really good. Not that great anymore. My belly pretty much stays pissed, dude. Like, it seems like if I eat purely clean stuff all the time, like veggies and like just straight up meats and stuff, my stomach is just as upset. McDonald's is definitely hard on it. Like if I eat a McDouble, I know that the rest of my evening is going to be filled with evacuating that McDouble. Yes, exactly. Going to take the Browns to the Super Bowl. Making a deposit in the porcelain bank. So it's 10, so I'm going to get into it, I guess. There's 2 of you, so I'm happy that the 2 of you are here. Hopefully more people join. I haven't been in Discord very much lately to know where is the best place to post things. So if you guys have any idea there, feel free to post it elsewhere. I'm going to turn my phone off so it's not buzzing the whole time. So yeah, I was just going to get on and do the Saturday morning hang thing because it's been a while and trying to get back into doing this more regular. But going to talk about the video that went up this past week, which was dealing with depression and anxiety and correlation with creativity. And I don't know. The feedback was really kind, and it seemed like a lot of people in the group here, or just people randomly that found it on YouTube or through other social media sites. Hey Reed, welcome. Seem to have gotten something out of it and had positive things to say, and I appreciate other people sharing their stories and their experiences with dealing with depression and all that mess. So it was not a video I necessarily wanted to make, but it was something that was going on that I felt was hindering me from creating standard videos and really getting the work done that I needed to be getting done. So I felt it would be appropriate to just be truthful and speak from the heart, so to speak, to let people know what it is I'm going through, and hoping that because other people have similar things that they can relate, and anyone who doesn't have that stuff going on could see the video and get a better understanding of what goes on with people that suffer from depression. So anyhow, yeah, if you check that out, cool. A few of you that are here, I got 3 on the line right now. So yeah, from there, just going to move into other stuff. I am in Ohio at the moment, not at home in Canada. So I'm here to spend some time with my kid and to assumably get together with bandmates at some point when we can all align our schedules to continue to work on our record. I think we have everything instrumentally tracked now, so we're going to compile all of the rough mixes so that I can start tracking vocals. So that's what I am in the States to do right now. What have you fellas been up to? Anybody got anything interesting going on? Thanks, Reed. Yeah, I appreciate that you took the time to watch it. And yeah, it had positive responses, which is awesome. It's good to see that there are other people that are going on. Like I said, the whole point of it was to tell people that they're not alone, and clearly that's the case because quite a few people responded to it. Anyhow, yeah, just something that needs to get out there. Hopefully people appreciate it. I don't plan on covering it a ton on the channel. Not a topic that's really what that channel's for, but it's better to be honest with people and just kind of tell them, what it's like, what's going on. So, yeah. What's everybody getting into lately? What's everybody listening to? Oh, I appreciate that, Miles. Thank you. Yeah, it happens, man. It's hard. Sometimes life gets in the way for sure. And then when all that other stuff, life getting in the way on top of just having general depression or anxiety disorders and stuff like that, or just having a tough time, it can make it really hard to feel motivated to create things. So, Windows, oh boy. We'll bring that up. Windows 11 mishap left me formatting a whole hard drive back in action. But yeah, so I had a similar thing. I had came into a deal on an M1 Mac Mini I don't know, a few months back now, about 4 months ago. And it was a church had it, and they were selling it. And they were basically, they were asking $750 for it, but it was the 16 gig, 512 gig storage version, which is like a $1,400 computer normally. So it's like, well, I'm going to grab it. There's no, that's crazy. Anyhow, to get to the part where it got weird, I bought the computer, and they had it stuck to a person in their church's iCloud account. And I've got the, because they were good, they were super honest people, they were very helpful, but they didn't quite understand how iCloud works and how the Find My thing works on Macs. So I basically had to reach out to the guy. The guy finally got back to me, who was the person on the account. And I was like, you have to release it from your, from your iCloud account, from your login, your Apple ID, so that I can add mine. Otherwise, it's just never going to work. But there are other options, like on the administrator end, when you're doing that, if you're releasing it, you can set it to be marked as no longer yours, or to erase the device, or mark it as stolen. So he picked erase device, but what that does is completely erase it, like back to just the bare bones of it. And then I had to do the same thing. I've never had to reformat a hard drive on a Mac. I've used Mac since 2001 exclusively, other than using PCs for work-related stuff and like project coordination. Basically anything in Microsoft Office before it really got good on Mac. Anyhow, yeah, I never had to do that before. So this is the first time I had to do that. It was quite a pain in the ass, because I do it inside, because you have to do it like in the back end. And then I would restart the computer and it still wouldn't open. So I was getting really frustrated because it just wasn't working. And I eventually, after searching, found something in an Apple forum somewhere that explained how to do it and make it get past this weird hurdle that is exclusive to the M1. So it's fine now. Works great. But yeah, I had a similar situation. That New King Woman is great. It is really, really good. I'm with you on that one, Reed. I've been listening to that a lot. That and the new Deaf Heaven record I've been listening to. I've been going back and listening to this band called Repeater. Really love that. Yeah, man. It's a similar situation. I had to put the OS on a flash drive and then boot it from there and then transfer the information over. It was a whole thing. But yeah, that is literally what I had to do. Nothing's changed there. Let's listen to Our Fears, which is the wonderful Miles and his band, which is great. I've watched the videos that you've been posting a couple of times through, and I put them on a playlist on my YouTube, and occasionally just go through a random bunch of stuff from folks I know from YouTube's, and it's on there. Great stuff. Really cool. Excellent singing, excellent guitar playing. Awesome. New Killers album. I love the Killers. I have not heard that record yet. I want to. It's just so much stuff comes out that it's hard to get to everything. You know, that's the thing. It's like there's so much content, and I want to. If I listen to something, I want to give it a fair listen and try to get a feel for what they intended. It's kind of hard to do when a lot of people just release singles. Like, you can get really into a single, but I don't know. I love the format of records. That being said, the record we're getting ready to put out, we're releasing as singles initially. So you just got to go with the flow, unfortunately. Yeah, it's an excellent music, Miles. You're doing really cool stuff. Guitar playing and singing are really stand out, in my opinion. outstanding stuff. Trying to think what else I've been listening to. I guess I can grab my phone and tell you. I can go through my history. Hopefully nothing is embarrassing in it. But if it is embarrassing, I'll still tell you. So I've been listening to Quicksand a ton. I've listened to Quicksand since I was in high school. But they put out a new record and it's amazing. Great guitar recording. Premier Guitar did an interview with Walter from Quicksand, who's also in rival schools. But anyways, talking about the gear that he used on the record. And he used a Roland Microcube on a lot of the record, and like a beat up harmony guitar. But if you listen to the record, you'll hear it. Like, you'll hear that there's layers of really high fidelity guitar stuff mixed with really low fidelity. New Quicksand, amazing. What I'm tell you, I think that record, because there's two of them. They put out one like a year ago. I don't know, 3 years ago. Seems like a year ago. I don't know. COVID kind of fucked up time, right? Distant Populations is the new record. It's amazing. Really, really good. If you're a fan of Cave-In or Mutoid Man, Stephen Brodsky from those bands is in Quicksand now. So he's doing some guitar playing and stuff. So that's worth checking out. And he's in a lot of their videos and stuff they've been posting lately. And they did a record called Interiors before that I'm just now getting connected to, which is great. But yeah, definitely check out new Quicksand. Go back into my here. I went through a period of listening to a bunch of grime stuff for a while. I occasionally get interested in electronica stuff, and hers is pretty silly and weird. And she's weird, clearly. I mean, she has a kid named like X or something with Elon Musk. Repeater, I've been listening to. If you weren't hip to Repeater, they're banned like at the tail end of MySpace, like 2009, 2010, when it was going away. That period of time where Justin Timberlake purchased it. Ross Robinson, who produced Korn and Glassjaw and Slipknot and all those other bands that became a big thing, found a handful of bands through MySpace and was working with them. So there's this band called My Own Private Alaska that's amazing. It's just like piano, drums, and screaming. Very weird, very unique. And this band called Repeater that he found and started working with, and the record that he worked on with them at the time, only their prior recordings were out, and I kind of forgot about them since 2011. And I was like, oh, I want to hear that record that they did with Ross Robinson, because I never actually got to hear it, and I love Ross Robinson's production work, so I went back and I've been listening to that a lot. There's a band from I want to say they're from Kansas City, called Bell and the Vertigo Waves. That's pretty solid. Bell works for JHS Pedals, and that's how I found her band, through her posting stuff through JHS Pedals. Excuse me for that gross noise. Infinite Granite, which is the new Def Evan record, is really good. All good. Thanks for hanging out, Miles. It's good to catch up, and let's work on doing one of these together sometime in the next month or so. Aside from that, yeah, King Woman, the Celestial Blues record, fantastic. Going back through the Foo Fighters, there's a band called Loom, Lume, but I love Loom. Fantastic band. Their record Rung Out is really good. Abominable Iron Sloth, going back through that. That's an old thing, but it's heavy and baritone and tuned super low. Fun. So that's it. That's what music stuff I've been listening to. And then I've been kind of messing with some soundscape stuff, and my wife as well played synth on the new batch of Close the Hatch material that's coming out. So we worked on that together during the past few weeks when I haven't been doing this. I worked on on some stuff with her. So she played synth on a handful of the songs. Yes. Reed. Yeah, the original lineup of Abominable Iron Sloth did not. And then it's a whole thing. That dude, I think, was from England. And he came over here or something, Austria or something. Don't remember the exact country. It's been a long time ago. He moved over here, and the band started over there, then he moved it over here. The people he was working with here bailed on him, so the guys in Willhaven stepped up, and kind of became the backing band. Somewhere between the first and second record, that dude's wife was supposed to move over, but they couldn't get her green card, so it kind of just ended the band, and he went back, and then he eventually came back, and they were living in Kentucky and recorded that second. Very strange story. It's got to be weird to go from England to like the West Coast, and then back to England, and then come back to the States, but you're just in like rural Kentucky, which seems like a crazy journey. And I think the band just ended after that. The second record doesn't really hold up in comparison. It's not as unique as the first one. I guess it can't be really, but yeah, they just kind of went more of a noisy lo-fi route, whereas the first one was noisy but still recorded really well. Will Haven still rules. That record they put out a few years ago is fantastic. Always has. I don't know. I love that band. There's something about something that like that band in particular, like super, super simple stuff that's just direct and effective, and it's great. It's amazing stuff. Let's see. I was going to get into some other stuff. I've been messing with, did the soundscape stuff, as I was mentioning. I did some synth work with my wife on the record, and now I am kind of eyeballing stuff because I finally started working again, which is awesome. Thanks to Nick Hill, he got me hooked up with some work where he works. And as you can no doubt tell, Nick Hill is very busy with work, which has prevented him from doing a lot of video stuff. And it makes sense now that I'm working with them why they're so busy, because they are slammed with work, which is a good thing, good position to be in. Also, it's one of those things that meeting folks like you guys here on YouTube, and had I not created a YouTube channel, around the beginning of the pandemic, basically. Like, I started mine at the very beginning of 2020. Like, I think my first video I recorded in November of 2019, but didn't record another video for a while after that. Anyhow, I would have never met Nick. I would have never met any of you had I not started that channel. And as a positive consequence of having done that, I've now able to find remote work because of Nick stepping in to help, and that was super cool of him. And so now I'm doing some video editing and working with him, and occasionally doing some shoots and working with him, which is awesome. And he works for a great company called Skill Scout, and it's a lot of filming and editing and stuff, creative work, and it's cool. So that's a thing, and hopefully Nick and I can get back to doing well stuff. I did go to his house a couple of months back, and our intention was to work on well stuff, but it was also the first time I was doing work with him, and we got a little bit tied up in that. We ended up just hanging out more than working on well stuff. We did, in full transparency, we did hang out and try to play stuff, but we were also fairly inebriated, so it didn't really go anywhere. But we did have a good time, and I showed Nick a bunch of music that he had not heard before, and that was real fun. It's always fun seeing somebody hear new stuff and being excited about it. Thank you, Reed and Anthony. Most of the thanks goes to Nick. He really stood up for me and got me in that opportunity. So pretty cool. I'm happy to be doing stuff again. It has become a lot to deal with, but it's good. Beyond that, I've just been kind of like, now that I'm working again, I've been looking at like guitar pedals. Like, I want to buy gear again. I love gear. I love buying shit. Clearly, that's a thing. But I don't want to buy stuff that's big or that costs a ton right now. So I've been looking at guitar pedals, and I thought that it would be fun to just kind of look at that stuff with you guys. So I'll share the screen and we can chat about it and see what you guys think. So let's see here. Share. Okay. So I've been messing with, I don't know, I got a few pedal companies pulled up here that I think are awesome. So I've been messing with the Earthquaker Devices stuff for a few years. Love like the Afterneath, which I'll go into the devices section here and we'll look at that. But the Afterneath is my favorite pedal of all time. Just a weird ambient reverb delay thing. It's just a super wild pedal. This is the version 3 they have in the picture. And the version 3 allows you to use an expression pedal to control the drag function. And it's also got multiple modes where it adds octaves and different things. So it's really cool, really versatile pedal. I had the version 1 originally, and then when I saw that they added one with the expression, which is a modification that I saw some people doing, but I really didn't want to mod mine. Once this came out, sold the Generation 1, bought the Generation 3, and as it turns out, I just use it like I use the original one because that's just what sounds best to me. And the irony being is I saw a video from Andy at Pro Guitar Shops, which now works for Reverb, demoing this pedal when he used to do a lot more straight up pedal demos. And in that video, he played a bunch of Portishead songs with a setting on this pedal, and that was enough for me. I love Portishead, and I literally took a Sharpie and marked the points where he set it to do Portishead stuff, and that's literally the setting I use. I'm very lazy in that regard, but it sounds great, and there's plenty of stuff to tinker with, but I always go back to that just because it's great. This kind of explains the modes. So you have like unquantized smooth, which is the original setting, and then there's this slew thing, which kind of gives you some vibe. Anyways, you can read this stuff if you're interested in it, but yeah, the modes are cool because you can add all this other stuff to it and how the octaves and stuff work. You can add fifths and stuff. Really cool, really amazing pedal. Super great for droney stuff and just adding a lot of character to clean playing. I just got this guy recently, which we did a short little video on, the Astral Destiny. Very similar to the Afterneath, but more of a chorus and reverb than just a reverb and delay. And this one has a lot more like presets and wild stuff on it. Let's see. The arrows is cool if you're someone who uses a lot of fuzz, but you want to be able to kind of rein it in and make it be less muddy. That pedal rules. I have one of those somewhere. I think it's at the house. Anyways, it's a good pedal. It's a boost pedal, but it's also a good pedal to kind of bring character into muddy stuff. Acapulco Gold, I have a clone of that. Amazing pedal. It's a distortion, but it's powerful enough that it would actually run a cab, which is wild. Bit Commander, got one of those guys. It's like if you want to make your guitar sound like Nintendo. Let's see here. Data Corruptor is a crazy like synthy pedal. Really awesome. Depths is, I believe, a chorus, or no, it's an optical vibe. So I've never really fucked with that one. That would be something fun to play with. Dispatch Master is my favorite reverb delay in general, and I've owned 2 of them, and I end up selling them because I use stuff like Helix all the time, and I don't really get to use them in the way that I would like. But I ended up selling it to buy other things, and I regret it every time. So that may be what I get again, just because it's great. Nice reverb delay combination. Eruptor, Fuzz. I have this Ghost Echo, which I've done a video on as well. Great pedal. If you're someone who likes big muffs, the Hoof or the Hoof Reaper, which is a combination of a tone bender and a big muff in one pedal. That pedal is amazing. If you're into that sort of stuff. Leviathan is an overdrive, and Palisades is a Leviathan and another overdrive combined. A lot of great stuff on here, so if you're not terribly familiar with them, I don't know how you aren't at this point. Definitely something worth checking out. This thing, the Swiss Things, is super cool if you want to run a bunch of pedals and be able to switch between like different groups of loops, or you want to have some that go in the effects loop and some that don't. It's a whole thing. Very cool. Warden is, in my opinion, one of the best compressor pedals that is out there. But I don't know. We'll get back to this here for a second and see what you guys are saying. So I will drop that out and cut out the screen thing. All right. Hey, Baritone Cult. I'm happy to see you here. Yeah, doing the stream, hanging out with you fellas, which is awesome. It's good to catch up. So let's see here. Let me get to any questions here. Astral Destiny is a great pedal, super cool, really wild. You can get pretty crazy with it. I used it a lot on the new recording and that we're working on. I used it just to make noise, and like there's a button on it that makes the reverb and decay like dive, make this crazy. So I used it on almost every song at some point just because it's fun. What fuzz do I like for playing chords? Man, let's see. I'm trying to think. I don't use a ton of fuzz anymore. I did for a long time. I use the Acapulco Gold for chord stuff. The Closeouch record 6, that whole record is the left side, or I think it's the left or right. One side is Acapulco Gold, the other side is the HM2. That combination of things makes a nice wall. The Peach Fuzz, or the Dan Electro clone of the Peach Fuzz, the C1 I think it's called. Those are great. And if I'm playing chord stuff and I want them to be more like of a wall of sound and less super articulate with like no single note stuff within them, I will use that pedal, and I take the tone knob on the guitar and turn it off, which is a Ian Thornley from the band Big Wreck. I learned that from him in some article forever ago, like well over a decade ago. He talked about if he was using fuzzes, he turns off his tone to do chords, and it just makes it thicker, and it does. You lose some articulation if you're trying to do like busy single note stuff within it, but if you're just playing straight chords and you want them to sound big, that's a good way to do it. And I'm not a huge fan of big muffs. I've owned several of them, and I end up getting rid of them every time. They just don't do anything for me. They've never connected. I've owned one since like one of the third or fourth pedals I ever owned in the early, in the mid 90s or whatever, and just never connected for me. And I had the hoof or whatever, which I just talked about on the other thing, and it just, I prefer overdrives or a combination of distortion and overdrive, or something that's just an extreme version of one of those things. So like something like an HM2 in combination with an overdrive, or like a boost pedal in combination with a fuzz. So if you're using, like I was saying, if you're using a super dense fuzz like a big muff, or something that's super like a, I don't know, tone benders can be pretty thin sounding depending on how you set them, but if you use a tone bender in a way that's thicker in approach, if you use something like a boost in front of it or behind it, you can oftentimes kind of bring back some of the high-end stuff that gets lost, or at least kind of pinpoint a presence. Or if you use an EQ pedal, you can also go through and be like, okay, well, I kind of want this to stick out so the guitar can be heard but still have the heft of the fuzz. So that's something to mess with. And I was going to talk to you guys about this company called Caroline that makes guitar pedals. They are amazing. I've got 2 of their pedals, and I'm completely blown away with them. They're a smaller company, but they make some stuff that's equally on par with the Earthquaker stuff, especially if you like reverbs and drones. So like, I'm really into reverbs and delays. It's a big part of what I do in my band. That's the whole post-rock, post-metal element of my band is, really built around the use of delays and the speed picking stuff in correlation with delays. It gives you that kind of like slow dive kind of thing going on. Just really into that stuff. So that's a thing I use, but we'll jump back into the screen share and I will show you what I'm talking about. So, all right. So let me get into here. Caroline pedals. So again, small company, but they make really amazing, unique stuff. And just great stuff. The Hawaiian Pizza is a fuzz pedal. Very cool. Shirts and merch, not really a thing. But so they make these versions of things. So instead of like being like a straight up delay pedal, they make these lo-fi like bit crushed versions of them. So this lo-fi delay computer, amazing pedal, exactly what it sounds like. It's a bit crushed lo-fi delay with some options. You can make it function not bit crushed too, so you can turn that portion off and just have a straight up delay pedal. But it's got some bloom features and latching and stuff. Super cool, amazing pedal. Caroline, I believe these are all handmade too, which is even cooler if that's something you care about. Hawaiian Pizza is a fuzz pedal and a fuzz overdrive combo. Super cool. The Icarus I'm not familiar with yet, so that's something I will have to tinker with. Same thing with these lo-fi mod pedal, so it's mod like chorus modulator stuff, ring mod stuff, but with the lo-fi element, so you can get really bit crushed and nasty sounding with something that's a modular, unit. Pretty cool. There's secondary buttons. I think it's this one, the one that looks like a little burst of whatever. Those are bloom features that you can usually just momentarily press them, and it just kind of makes the pedal go crazy for a second. Very cool. Same thing. This is just a straight up tremolo, but it also has the Havoc button, which is the same as the bloom button. You can just kind of go nuts with it, and it'll randomly do stuff. This also has a bit crush feature, that little guy that looks like an Atari monster. I don't know how else to describe that. That guy that looks like he's made out of little bits, that knob usually does some sort of bit crushing feature, so this one will also do that. Very cool. Meteor Lo-Fi Reverb. This is my go-to when I don't have the afterneath, or I use it in combination with the afterneath to do swells and stuff. It's a fantastic pedal, and the lo-fi element of it really does some cool stuff. The regeneration, which is this knob, you can just make it oscillate into itself and get really out of control. Fantastic. And also has the Havoc thing to where you can just make it go nuts. That's a lot of fun. This Fuzz and Octave, you can switch the button to either be a kill or the bloom feature. So you can make it go completely nuts with Octave and Fuzz randomly, or you can just have it kill the pedal momentarily, which is pretty cool. And the Kilobyte, which is another pedal that I have, is a lo-fi delay. Same concept as the Meteor, but just a delay. So you've got your timing, all that stuff, and then you can add or subtract lo-fi stuff. I've never used any of the distortion pedals. I imagine they're amazing, but I just haven't purchased one yet, so that may be something I look into. But yeah, definitely if you're someone who's in the market for a new company, or you want to try something you haven't tried before, Caroline pedals are the jam. I'll get rid of this and go back to chatting with you guys. Yeah, Megabyte rules. It's a super cool pedal. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Caroline. That's an amazing company, and they've made some really spectacular pedals. Super fun. The Meteor was like my gateway into him, and also another one of those Andy at Premier Guitars. When he was doing our Pro Guitar Shop, when they were doing all those demos of pedals, he demoed that pedal on there too, and I ordered it by the end of the pedal, or by the end of the video. And HX Effects, or the HX family as a whole, the Helix family, a lot of the delays and reverbs on there are incredible. I'm trying to think, there's one like the Grammy-Aid or whatever that's called. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Grammy-Made, whatever. That reverb I use a lot, just to kind of do what some of these actual physical pedals do. Like I use a combination of that and the glitch delay to kind of do what the Meteor does. So if I'm using the Helix and I don't have my actual pedals with me, I have like versions of them programmed into presets, and you can do a pretty cool thing. Pretty good job of recreating that, but you can also recreate things in there that you can't do. Like, I think the fun thing about Helix is that you can rearrange how the effects fall in a signal chain to figure out if it doesn't matter whether there's no right or wrong way. So if you want to use one delay in combination with one reverb or one distortion or whatever, and you just want to move them around and see like what way does it sound best to me, because traditionally you would assume that like an overdrive would go at the end or like right before the amp, but sometimes you can move those things around. I like to run reverbs and delays through overdrive so that they're affected by the dirt. For a lot of what I do, it kind of creates a much more interesting vibe, because you're adding all this level of saturation to something that is blooming and repeating, and that can get a little out of control, but sometimes that's fun. The Ganymede, yeah, that thing rules. The glitch one is great. I've been using in the mod stuff, I've been using the retro reel a lot. I've been putting it like at the end of all of my recording chains. So I use different stuff to record than I do to play in a room, like through cabinets and stuff. But if I'm making a patch specifically for recording, I've been using that a lot just to kind of eliminate using plugins later on in my DAW. But you can put that on there, and it kind of has tape saturation and a nicer, fuller sound to it by adding that. You got to toy with the timing and all that, but it's a cool thing. I may do a video on that soon, because it's definitely a good way to bring some character to the guitar tone without having to do a whole lot. Yeah, man, HX Effects, HX Stomp, all those things, like, they're amazing. Just, there's so many options. Yeah, being able to control things, like swelling into things and using the volume, like using the volume pedal to get in and out of stuff is fun. On the HX Stomp, I have the external buttons. The Analog Endeavors folks made that pedal, or that extension, and you can assign each one to do whatever you want. Occasionally, I will set that on certain presets to act as like a bloom feature to kind of boost the volume in certain areas. You can do a lot of stuff, man. That's pretty limitless, honestly. Sometimes it's a little too much, but I've kind of gotten even with that. Like, I have a couple of patches that I really dialed in that sound a certain way with certain guitars that I have, and then if I play that guitar, I use the associated patch. And I think it's good to have all the options. It's also good to know how to utilize the options to your advantage so that you're not spending so much time trying to find exactly a specific sound, because too many options sometimes can be detrimental to creativity. So I don't know, I treat it all like tools, but I don't know, I've worked on stuff that's more like Americana oriented lately for some demos, for some stuff that I may be working on later, and I just kind of created a patch very quickly. It's like 6 or 7 blocks of just like, okay, what would I use if I was gonna just play in this type of band, and then I create the patch, and I don't think about it beyond that. Like, okay, if this is a good enough tone for that type of music. Distortion's the same thing. You can go nuts beating it to death, try to find like what's the coolest, heaviest distortion, and that's cool and all, but there's a lot of stuff in there that's just, it's great. It's universally great. And I don't know if you guys saw it a while ago, I did a video where I compared a bunch of high gain amp sims from different companies, and ultimately what I discovered via doing it is that they all sound good enough to be used, and some of them have characteristics that the other ones don't, but that doesn't make them good or bad. It just is a subjective thing. So the tones that stuck out to me were just because they were different in the EQ phase, and I'm sure with enough tweaking of any of them, you could have made them sound indistinguishable, because high gain stuff kind of becomes indistinguishable at a certain point. It's more so about like, what IR are you using, and you don't want to get too crazy with that. But even with that, like, I've got, I think, 100 and some IRs loaded into my Helix. I use 3 or 4 of them. So it's good to have the options and know that you can use them should you need them, but it's bad to spend a ton of time trying to find a sound or a thing when you can just record it and move on down the line, especially if you use the Helix in a way that you record a dry signal for reamping. Then it doesn't even matter. And I've gotten to where I do that on almost everything I demo now. Like, I'll have I think it's Send 5 and 6 on the HX Stomp, and I believe it is on the Helix too, but you can record an effective send, an affected send, and you can record a bypassed send that's just straight DI. Then you can do whatever you want to do to it later, but be okay with the tone you're using for the time being, just to get your idea out. And I think, at least for me, that's a much more reasonable way to approach it. And you can use the Helix units to reamp stuff, so there's a lot of possibility. Or if you have like HX, not HX Edit, but like Helix Native, which isn't working on M1 yet, which is sad. But if you have Helix Native and you're not working on an M1 system, you can just use it and reamp that way too. You don't need to actually fully reamp, which is nice. So I don't know. There's a lot of options, which is good. But again, just getting your idea out is much more important than what precise tone you use. But if you've got stuff dialed in and you like it, then just stick with it. But that was very ranty. I apologize. But yeah, the point is, don't go crazy trying to beat the tone you're using to death versus just getting the idea, because you can always come back and re-record the thing later once you've created a solid concept. And then I wanted to get into another pedal company, which is much more well-known, but also makes incredible pedals. And then we'll chit-chat for a bit, and then we'll wrap it up. So I see Anthony for sure. Any amp in the right context, it can be mega awesome. Right, exactly. Just you're there to create, not to spend the whole time. It's fun to toy with other things, but you want to get, get pen to paper as soon as possible, for a lack of a better term. Wampler, amazing company. They've been around a long time. They make a lot of really incredible pedals, and they used to do a lot of modifications that became, another thing similar to Keeley. Keeley did a lot of mods and stuff that became pedals later. But they have a ton of great pedals, like distortions, overdrives, versions of things. So it's like a Rat pedal, like a newer version of a Rat pedal. I don't know what the Andy Wood gearbox is, but I'm going to look into it because I'm sure it's great. Plexi Drive, that's been around for Wampler for a while. Kind of gives you the Plexi Marshall sound. Wampler does a lot of amp in the box type of things. So you've got that guy, pretty cool. The Bell Overdrive, which the Bell is Wampler's version of the Nobles Overdrive, which a lot of people think is a tube screamer. It's not. Just because it's green doesn't make it a tube screamer. It's a silly thing to just assume, which happens a lot. I actually saw that conversation go up on the Line 6 Helix forum on Facebook the other day. Someone was like, what's a pedal that's in the Helix that's similar to the the Nobles Overdrive? And everyone was like, just use a tube screamer. They're not the same circuit. They're not at all designed to function the same. It is an overdrive, but it's a different concept than the tube screamer. The tube screamer is much more mid-focused, and whereas the Bells is much more of a transparent thing with more control of the low and mid. So that's something, if you're looking for an overdrive that's a little more flexible, that's a good one. Or the Earthquaker Devices Westwood is kind of a version of this too. Pantheon Overdrive, this is more of their answer to the super high gain overdrives that are out right now. Tumnus is, of course, the Klon clone. This is a modified Klon clone with more options and flexibility. This is a simplified version of that, the Tumnus, which is the small guy. Again, a simplified version of the Klon. Pinnacle was their original overdrive, from what I understand, and people love that. It's an overdrive. Paisley Drive is a combination, I believe, of the Bell and the something else. The Pantheon, maybe? I don't know. It's a combination of two overdrives. Yeah, there's the smaller Paisley Drive. But yeah, lots of cool stuff here. Sovereign is one of my favorite straight-up distortion pedals ever, and I've never actually pulled the trigger on it. I play it almost every time I see one in a store. I'll pull it out and play it and think about buying it. I never pull the trigger on it. Amazing pedal. Let's get into Fuzz. Why not? Not a ton of them in there right now. Velvet Fuzz, Frustration. I don't know. Not familiar with either of those. Looks like cool stuff. And delays and reverbs. Ethereal reverb and delay. It's kind of their version of the Dispatch Master. It's a very cool pedal. A little bit more going on and a little bit more options. Faux Tape Echo, that one is very cool. I've never used the Faux Spring Reverb, but I've heard good things about it. But anyway, great company, definitely worth checking out, and get that out of there. Hello, Bun. Welcome aboard. And I heard the Catapult, which is kind of like an orange amp in a box pedal, I believe. Great pedal, from what I understand. I never used one, but I've heard people will be happy with them. I'm seeing them on many pedal boards, so I imagine they're pretty solid. What's up, Mun? Got about 15, a little less than 15 minutes. I'm probably going to cut it off here shortly, but yeah. How many of them do I actually own? Pedals? I don't know. I'd say we have like 30 or 40 pedals at the house. We have a lot of pedals. I started kind of collecting them, as I mentioned earlier in the thing. It's like it's easier to buy pedals sometimes than it is to like go buy another massive piece of gear. Like I can get a pedal for $100 or $60 used or whatever and get a new sound. But with the Helix and stuff, you don't necessarily need them, but it's also kind of cool to find a thing in an actual pedal form that you like And if you want to try to recreate it in the Helix for show purposes or something, you can always tinker with that later. But I don't know. I use pedals in conjunction with the Helix, and I'll just use straight up amps with pedals too. So it's fun to have it all and do it both ways. But yeah, I have a lot. Mostly what I have is reverbs and delays, but I have a handful of overdrives. We've got a lot of fuzzes too. But for the most part, most of what I end up buying is stuff that's would be for like ambient use. So delays, reverbs, any variation therein. I mean, I have like the Octopus and all that stuff. We have a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of them. I don't think I own any Wampler stuff currently. I did have one of their overdrives for a minute, and I had a Keeley overdrive for a minute, and they were great. But I sold them when I bought the HX Stomp. Yeah, it's a different tactile thing. Like you're physically turning the knobs and getting reactions. Sometimes you can get, because they're still kind of if they're like an analog design pedal, you're going to get some artifact and things that happen that will never really occur in the digital world. Not for good or bad, but there are definitely some weird, quirky things that happen with physical pedals and using batteries and things of that nature that just has to be synthesized in something digital. And some pedals do have like a dying battery setting and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it's fun just to try different things. If you find something you like and you want to stay in the digital world, then you can always find a way to recreate it just for live purposes. But man, pedals rule. It's just fun. It's fun to have a lot of stuff to mess with, and I don't know. Sometimes I'll just plug 2 or 3 things in and put them through an amp and just see what comes out of it. And sometimes that's really helpful. My buddy Micah Carley, who owns Popside, who I did a video going through his whole studio. He has a ton of pedals because he was in a band that was fairly successful, and a lot of companies gave him stuff. And my thing when I've recorded with him, if we're doing guitar stuff, especially if we're doing noisier sections or we're just recording feedback or noise for a day, like he'll literally just go to the rack and start grabbing pedals, and then we'll just create signal chains and just make noise. And sometimes you find a sound or a noise just by randomly combining things that you wouldn't normally combine, whether it makes sense or not. You'll find a sound that you really like that wouldn't have occurred without that random occurrence, and then you can kind of end up using it a little more to your advantage and repurposing that sound as part of the overall sound of a record, which is very fun. The only 2 pedals I ever had were the Boss JB2. What's the Boss JB2? I'm drawing a blank. Man, you can always get them again. The used market on pedals fluctuates so much, and there's the thing with pedals. The thing in general, I think the digital world does not have this, which is pretty interesting. But most overdrive pedals are kind of built around the same schematic and some of the same components. The same thing with most delay pedals and most reverb pedals. Utilize, aside from the ones that are using digital signal processing, but like standard like analog pedals. Angry Driver, that's a good pedal. That's like a combination of the Angry Charlie and the Blues Driver. It's a JHS. Yeah, that was a fantastic pedal. I didn't know what it was called. Anyhow, it is the thing that kind of blew my mind and also like opened my eyes up to stuff. Like, so my buddy Jeff Newell, who I talk about on here, is a luthier. He builds amps, he builds pedals. He kind of opened my eyes that like a lot of amps are based around the Fender Bassman circuit. Like almost all of the early Marshall stuff, like the Plexis and stuff, it's just a version of that thing, but using components that were available in the country they were in, since it was much more expensive to import stuff from America to Europe or England to build amps. So they made a version of that amp using parts that were locally available. So they're all kind of a bastardization of another thing. Everything's derivative, but these are actually physically derivative. Like you can, if you want to build that type of amp, whether it's a Bassman or like a Marshall JMP or a Plexi, they all start with the same components and then it's just little variables that you change in the wiring and the preamp section that really makes it one thing or another. So they're all kind of the same thing. The same thing can be said for overdrive pedals, delay pedals, reverb pedals. They all, on the analog end of things, all share the same components, and it's just how they're attenuated, how they're connected, and like how the buttons affect, like the knobs and the buttons affect them. They're all essentially the same thing. So I guess my point there is, if you get a cheaper delay pedal, there's a high probability that if it's not something that uses digital signal processing, that it's not that different from the expensive one that does kind of the same thing, because it's probably utilizing the same chips and components and just using cheaper hardware on the outside or cheaper connection points. Or it's mass produced in a way that it's mostly machine soldered and stuff like that onto a board instead of being actually hand wired. So that's a good thing to look into if you are able to like find schematics on stuff. If you give a shit enough about that, you can usually find like, I really like this pedal, but I don't have enough money for it. There's probably a generic equivalent of it, or even a kit that you could learn to build yourself that is the same exact pedal with the same components. So it's a weird thing, because there's clearly places, people like Caroline and Wampler, and then like Earthquaker Devices, take those ideas and build new things out of them and change them, but they're all derivative of a pre-existing thing. They're just modifying that thing. So when you're getting into simple stuff like basic reverbs and delays, they're all kind of interchangeable. You'll find, though, that with a lot of the cheaper delays, they end up being more of a slap echo than a delay. So that's a thing that I've noticed. Their delay time is not as long. But Joyo, which is a cheaper company, they literally make clones of stuff. There for a while, they were like making direct clones of MXR products and stuff. So you can find stuff that they make used for $30-$40 that's going to be the same, literally the same components, cheaply manufactured, but literally the same physical components that made that thing. So it's always a thing to take into consideration. Like you have, what is the full tone overdrive that was huge for a while before he kind of ran himself into the ground with his crazy political beliefs during the beginning of this whole thing with the pandemic. Anyways, so you have that overdrive, and then Joyo made a version of that overdrive called the Ultimate Overdrive. If you open them up, it's the same components. More, yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with any of those companies, and if it sounds good, who cares? I have two, like I have from this company called Deadbeat Audio, which I did some videos on way early into doing videos. I have a delay pedal from them, and I have a reverb pedal from them. They're really simple, and they were like $50 new on Amazon, and they sound incredible. The delay is the same components as the what's called the Octopus, and they're kind of indistinguishable. There's one less knob on it, but if you mess with them next to each other, no, they actually have the same amount of knobs, come to think of it. But anyways, neither here nor there. If you mess with them next to each other, you can't tell the difference. You know, the settings may not look identical, but if you tweak them, because knobs are knobs, you can make them sound indistinguishable from one another. And one pedal is $50, the other one's $129. So there are options out there that are not going to break the bank. Joyo does crazy stuff. Yeah, you're right. Then now they're doing like amp sim stuff. Like they have a cab simulator pedal, all kinds of crazy stuff. You can load all these IRs and stuff into this pedal and cycle through them, which is cool. You can kind of run it as a beeline off of a standard pedal board and send it to front of house, which is really sweet. But yeah, Joyo is a good way to go with any of that stuff. If you can find like some of the older model stuff of JHS that just didn't sell well, sometimes those you can find cheap. If you can find old JHS mods of pedals, again, like worth messing with. There's the pedal, I think it's called Soul Food, which I believe is a clone. JHS did some mods of those that basically make that pedal, you know, right on par with what the OG clone was, and gives you more flexibility in the high end. It's like $20 more than the standard Soul Food pedal, so if it's like $60, it's $80. those are worth messing with if you can find them. Yeah, there's so much stuff out there that you don't need to spend a ton of money. Even the Amazon pedals, those were made by Donner and then repurposed. Joyo has licensed some of those casings and designs too. Basically, it's just one of those companies creates a thing, and then you can pay to brand it however you want. And those pedals are great. They work well. They sound good. Some of them may not be what you want, but you're out $29. Okay. Now you have another thing that you may end up finding use for down the line, or maybe you're working on a song that, oh, I could use this thing that I never thought I would use, and it's there. So, or you could sell it and buy another one. Who knows? But I bought a few of the pedals from Amazon, that like the $25 pedals, and done videos on them. The one I did was a BBE Pre clone, and it's amazing. BBE Pre's are a highly sought after pedal. Guys in Meshuggah used them for years when they were still using the solid state Marshall amps and stuff. It's a big part of the sound on those early records. It's also something that's just used in general for recording with overdrives and stuff. They're great for bass. I don't know. Pedal is $25. It's indistinguishable from the real thing. We have the real thing at Encore Studios, where Sean, who plays in my band, he has all his pedals and stuff there. And in his collection of pedals, he has a BBE Pre and or BB Pre or whatever. It does not. They're not distinguishable. You can't, if you AB them, can't tell the difference. One's $25. The other one's like $180. So, could always get into it. I think it's the thing is like now that I'm working a little more, starting to make some more money, I'm just kind of looking at like what little things can I get that aren't going to break the bank, that'll give me some new stuff to toy with and maybe some new content for the channel. So, I think going with that, or like looking at something like Zounds, which I covered on the video on the Astral Destiny, to just kind of like, what pedal do I want to try, and if it's a more expensive pedal, what pedal do I want to try and not break the bank in the process, or get it, decide I don't want it, I can send it back. No harm, no foul. So they're good for that. Guitar Fetish, who I talk highly of on this channel a lot. They make great pedals. They're all about $50. The Overdrive that I did the video on, and the Delay, the Overdrive I did the video on is literally the same. It's a Tube Screamer, but it's the same mod of the Tube Screamer that the Earthquaker Devices Plumes is doing. So Plumes is about $79 on the used market. Brand new, it's about $129 if I recall correctly. And then the what's called GHS stuff, $50. Same deal. Yeah, Donner stuff's great. I have I think the only thing Donner I have, we have a Donner chorus, and a Donner tiny tuner that I also have a Moor, Mooer, micro tuner that's the same. They're literally the same pedal, just different branding. I have a Donner power supply too. It's like a tiny power supply that'll power, I think, 6 pedals. 9-volt. It's a little noisy, but it does work. But yeah, man, I don't know. There's no right or wrong way with any of this stuff, and I realize this is a bit rambling, kind of just going out there, but mostly I just wanted to hang out and catch up with you guys, and just kind of chit chat about gear a little bit, see how everybody was doing. Again, want to express my thanks for those of you who watched the video on the depression stuff. The feedback was awesome. It was great hearing some of your stories, and to know that everyone has those situations and all that stuff. So it was really something I appreciated and enjoyed hearing your feedback. I don't enjoy being depressed, obviously, but it was reassuring to know that even the people in this community that I respect and admire are also dealing with similar things. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I hope to do more of a traditional video coming up soon. It's been weird to have topics, so usually these live things are a little easier on me because I can kind of just be like, let's hang out and let's talk about stuff and find out what you guys are into, what you're listening to, what you guys are dealing with recording wise and stuff. And I think the next live stream will focus more on recording equipment and stuff, just because I think it's interesting. So I'm going to get into more recording oriented stuff. And I have a few videos that are like pseudo in the can that are like pretty dense topics, like mid-side EQing and stuff. But I think that in order to get to a place of putting up a video about mid-side EQing, I should probably do a video specifically about EQing first. And, you know, Bun's kind of covered a little bit of this stuff on his recent series of stuff on recording solo. And so that's the other thing I got to take into consideration what everyone else is doing and not double down information. So, which is hard not to do these days. But anyhow, yeah, I think I'm going to cover more recording stuff on the next live stream. And video-wise, I don't know what we're doing yet. I may just do some more straight-up baritone content because it's been a while, and that seems to be something that folks in the community are stoked on. So we shall see. But it was a great time hanging out with everybody. I wanted to keep it right at an hour, and we are exactly at an hour. Actually, an hour and 8 minutes on my end, but an hour even as far as from 10 to 11 a.m. So I appreciate it. I'm so glad I got to hang out and talk to a few of you that are here. And if you're catching this later, hope you dig what's going on here. Feel free to join next time. So I'm going to shoot for next Saturday, but that's all kind of relative to where I'm at in the States here or if I'm back in Canada. So got to figure all that out first. But I will be posting stuff on Instagram as well as Discord leading up to it to keep you all in the know. So appreciate it, fellas. It's good to see all of you. And yeah, have a great rest of your day and weekend, all of you. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, until next time, fellas. Take care. Have a good one.